Hey, Tony Gaskins here, popping in for a little video. Now, I want to talk to you about something, man. It's very important for parents, especially. And a lot of times I notice that parents are not really attentive to their children and their children's phones and just what they have going on. And it's so much happening. And even like with my son, I have to be mindful to have my wife check his phone. I don't check it just because I don't want to see something that I don't want to see and not know how I would respond. I'm not a parenting coach, so she handles things a lot better than me because with myself, he could be flying out of a window, and I want to be able to be here, to film these videos to help more than just my family. And so I understand my limitations, but her, she's able to express herself better than me when it comes to our sons. So although I'm very active in their lives and I talk to them, we have our different strengths. And one of the things that I realize is every kid today has a cell phone. And if your child has a cell phone, it's almost like you pretty much have to check that phone every day, like every night. What we really need to do as parents, and we're going to get to the meaning of this video here, but just for the parents, what we really need to do is have a station in the house where, and we have this in our house, and I think it makes a huge difference, where that is where the children's phones go. Don't allow your child to have their phone in their room. Have a station in a different room. It could be in the kitchen, it could be in your bedroom, it could be in another room, playroom, or whatever you have, where that's where the phones are plugged in at. Because your child is a child, he or she is a dependent, so they shouldn't have to be on call for their friends for midnight or 1 a.m. calls. But we need to have that, because when that phone and devices, and this is other devices as well, like a computer or a tablet, need to have a media station in the home where you plug these things in at night. And as a parent, if you don't go to bed before them, make sure everything is put at that station. And if you have to wake up to use the restroom every now and then, just pop out, make sure it's still at that station. Or if you wake up before them, and the reason being is because there's things seeping in from all different ways. And in most cases, when a child becomes a teenager, they get some form of a debit or credit card. And with that card, if that card is not monitored, if the card is not checked, if you can't monitor what's being spent, you very easily can have a subscription to something you shouldn't have a subscription to. And then what's happening is this is going on into adulthood. So I've heard from male and female about their addiction to pornography, and it's very sad to hear that. We all have personality traits and personality quirks, and we have to know ourselves as people, but very rarely do we actually get to know ourselves. Myself personally, I don't like addiction because I saw addiction growing up, and I saw it around with my family, not in my household, but my close family right outside of my household. And so it really made me very cautious when it came to doing things or being around things that could have me in a state of addiction. But that's me. I know that every single person may not think like that, or they maybe haven't seen it, so they didn't have a real life example. So what happens is there are men and women, boys and girls who started as boys and girls in their teens, or maybe even sometimes later, getting into pornography, and then from there becoming addicted to it. And what happens is it desensitizes. This is from me being able to work with people and study people and just see how individuals move. It desensitizes the person, and they don't understand the value of a body. They don't understand the value of a real connection and of a real relationship. And I started to notice the uptick when so many young men did not have a girlfriend. And I would be around like a basketball team or something, and so many of the guys would not have a girlfriend. And that's not really natural. That's not normal, because as men, I know, being a man and having the same body parts and the same brain as every other man, we are wired to seek out a relationship. We are wired to seek out companionship, not including extenuating circumstances where you're just an extreme introvert or some type of personality disorder. But outside of that, we are very in tune and we seek out relationship. So when I started seeing so many young men not desire a relationship, not want to be in a relationship, I'm like, wow, what's going on? And what it was is, when you don't have a relationship in the physical, then it's typically because there's a relationship in the digital. So now you have these young men, they're getting on their phone or their computer and they're building a relationship with someone digitally. And this is really becoming very rampant in adults, because the thing is as humans, we're kind of naturally given to sin, if you want to call it. We're naturally given to risk. We like risk. We like challenges. We like to be entertained. We like things that feel fun. And so when you think about this, it's like, how many people do you know that just innately want to do the right thing and want to be a good person? It's not a lot of humans. It's not very common for humans to want to go the long road. If we see a shortcut and there's a faster way to get from A to B, as humans, we're typically going to take that way. So I know for men especially, I'm not a woman, so I can't really speak for women, but I know as men, being a man and growing up my whole life around males and playing sports my whole life, as males, we seek adventure. We seek a thrill. Look at the sports and things that we do. We seek adventure and we seek a thrill, and we like risk. And it does not matter how a man is raised. Even from little boys, you will see little boys climbing to the top of the toy on the playground and jumping off the top. And you don't as frequently see the girls doing that. And when the girl's doing it, she's typically playing with the boys or she has brothers. But boys are more inclined to risk taking and adventure. And then when you see a girl doing that, we kind of consider it an exception to the rule. And it's the term when I was growing up was called a tomboy. And it was termed for boys who acted more like a girl. So when you think about this, imagine a grown man, or imagine a teenager who is left to themselves from the age of 13. And then especially imagine a grown man who is telling himself, you can't tell me what to do. I am grown. I do what I want to do. And then imagine something that is seen like the forbidden tree in the Garden of Eden being readily accessible. And it comes down to an internal moral compass, which will determine if this man will give into this feeling or not. And in most cases, men will not, unless there is some type of religious conviction or moral conviction that tells the man tells himself, hey, this is not right. This is not healthy. And I was watching a boxing match. It's like a little random boxing league. And they had two women fighting. And one of the women, it said that I've never heard of the women. So I Googled one. And it said that she is a OnlyFans star. And right there, I had a decision to make as a man. So on one side of the brain, or on one thought, it's like, oh, should I subscribe to OnlyFans and check her out? And then on the other side, I was able to tell myself no, because that's not good. You're married, and that's nothing good is going to come from that. That's not healthy. And then you may see something, you may like that, and then you may want to come back every day. And then I thought about all of the men I've met and the young men I've met, like under the age of 25, who are completely addicted to that type of content. And so I made a choice not to do it, and I'm here today talking about it, because I realized that a lot of people are faced with this choice every day, male and female. And I started to see women in the comments say, hey, I struggle with pornography. I struggle. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that women struggled with such a thing, because I didn't think that there was something that they could get out of it. But humans, being that we seek adventure, being that we seek a thrill, being that we like to be entertained, I've seen situations where male and female in the teenage, in those adolescent years, get into watching two other humans perform in that way, because it's almost like looking at something in the zoo, and it stimulates the brain, and then that goes into, how you feel, and you get some excitement and all of those things. And here's the thing, some people choose the digital and some people choose the physical. So I'm not bashing people who choose the digital, because I was just as bad in the physical. So instead of sitting and watching it, I was more so living it and creating it, which could be even more dangerous, in the sense of you can catch a STD, you can have children, all of that can happen. And I had to come to the point where I made a decision that I was going to get married and that I was going to be faithful. And at that point, that's when I really start to see over time, and especially now, where the digital starts to take over. Like, people understand the physical, it takes performance, it takes confidence, it takes risk. You can suffer some very severe consequences. So that digital world seems a lot safer to be with your phone or your tablet, and to be indulging in something that would be seen as taboo or forbidden, and therefore leads now even into like the metaverse, that virtual reality, to where more and more men are now becoming consumed by virtual reality, consumed by the digital world, and being already one track minded or tunnel vision type individuals. Men are very addicted to our phones. We're very addicted to our phones. And imagine if it's not your email. Like me, I'll spend time on my phone just reading all these different headlines, looking at all these different reels, and it may take 2 hours out of my days. It could be some days where it's 3 hours, or listening to YouTube videos and just occupying the brain with something that is meaningless. But imagine if a person does not have a calling or a purpose that holds them accountable, and that checks their spirit, convicts their spirit every day the way that I do. So because I'm on here doing this, I have an unfair advantage, because I have to have a spiritual positioning to where I'm not always convicting myself or being a hypocrite. I have to live with myself. But if I didn't have this calling, then I could way easier be trapped in the wrong things or doing the wrong things, just living as a human, because the excuse would then be, oh, I'm just being a man. This is what men do. This is what every guy I know is doing. That would be the excuse. And the thing about it is not every form of content has to be paid for. I remember coaching a client who came from that industry, and I had never heard of her name, and I was not into that industry, the sex worker industry. And I Googled her name while we were on the phone. And as I Googled her name, there was videos that were not behind a paywall, and they came up on the Google search, and they were right at the top under her name. And I could, even from the preview, I could watch her perform a sexual act on a man all the way through. And I was just floored. I was flabbergasted. I was discombobulated. I was just blown away. I'm like, I did not have to pay for this. Like, this is just out there, just off of her name, out her, performing name. And it was mind boggling to think that someone could hear her name at 13 and not have a credit or debit card, but have a cell phone, and Google her name and then watch these acts, and could watch that act over and over and over and over, and then desire to want to do that, or to just want to go down the rabbit hole and continue watching it. And when you think about this, what's now happening is so many men are getting into this, where it's a space where it becomes like the microwave. And when you get addicted to being able to eat and eat food that tastes good out of the microwave, who wants to spend 45 minutes or an hour with an oven if you can eat something that is good to you in 60 seconds? And that's what happens with pornography versus real life, and even masturbation versus real life. So there's times and spaces where men will be into the one, meaning Angela, and it's so quick and easy that we are not into our woman. And the reason being is a woman is like the oven. So you have to talk nice all day. You have to, touch, and you have to have foreplay. You have to really make love to a woman's mind in order to enjoyably make love to her body. There are women who it is just a chore, and they will just do it for their man because they feel it's their duty and it's like a chore, but it's not enjoyable for a man when a woman is in that state. So for a man to enjoy himself, he has to really prime that woman. And most women do not desire it as much as men. There are some women who say they do, and there's some women who try to speak for all women and say, oh, we want it just as bad, but that's not true. Take it from a man who was a womanizer. A woman does not, on average, want to be intimate as much as a man. A woman may want physical touch. She may want cuddling. She may want great conversation, but not the actual act. And so, therefore, it becomes a lot easier for men to look at this woman online who that is what she does. So because she does that, she's going to make sure she's nipped and tucked. Like her job is to work out and to keep her body perfect, to keep her skin perfect, and then to perform. And the man does not get to hear her ask him to do anything. So there's not a honey-do list for that man when he goes to that computer or to his phone. There's no complaining to him. There's no, you're not doing this or you're not doing that, or can you do this or can you do that? And so being human as humans and not having a lot of integrity innately, a lot of men are choosing this easy route. Choosing this easy route to where, okay, hey, I can go over here and I could indulge in this and I could see this and then I could pleasure myself, and then instead of going and dealing with an actual human being who I have to be nice to. And it's a easy way out. It's a cheap route. It's a weak route. But I want you to think about human nature. And I want you to think about if you leave your house and you get in your car and they say, hey, you're going to the store. And they say, well, if you go this way, it's going to be a lot of traffic. It's a lot of red lights, a lot of stop signs, so it's going to take you about 30 minutes. But if you take this route over here, it's really no traffic, and it's a back road. It's a shortcut still, and it's going to take you half the time. What are you going to do? And so that's what humans are being faced with, of like, hey, and this could be male and female, but I'm speaking more from a male perspective and what I'm seeing. And so now what I notice is that almost every single woman that I meet or that I talk to in the business world, like as a life coach, business consultant, relationship coach, I feel like over the last few months that I've taught, every single woman 100% has been single. And it's just really alarming because it was not always like that. It used to be kind of like 50-50. Whether one was in a relationship or single. And now it's like I only meet single women. And I have had the experience of meeting several women who were single until they found out I wasn't single. So it could some of the time, and a lot of times women are kind of fantasical. I don't know if that's a word. We're gonna make it a word, but kind of live in fantasy in the sense of how a lot of women have like a celebrity crush, or like how a R&B singer could have these women like throwing their panties and screaming and like crying, and really thinking that at this concert they're gonna make eye contact with this man and there's gonna be love at first sight. There's a lot of women who live in that. And so sometimes I don't know if the woman is saying she's single because she thinks that part of the coaching call, I'm asking her because I care, or because I'm curious, or because I know what she looks like. Or so I would say it could be 10 to 20% could be lying. But still, if it's 80-90% that are telling the truth, I'm meeting an alarming rate of single women. And so when I meet single men, and I know, I can think right now of some single men who are good guys, in my opinion, as a man. And so men, of course, we're going to judge men differently. We're going to judge men more harshly because we know the real of men. But I'm thinking of guys right now that I know who are single men, and I see them as good men, and I cannot imagine, like, okay, how are you single? Like, how are you single when there's so many single women? Like, you really have this huge field to pick from, and you're not perfect, and no woman is going to be perfect, but there's a lot of options out here. And almost to the point to where men are now having analysis paralysis, but at the same time, while having analysis paralysis, they also have the convenience of pornography right on their phone. And so when you couple these two together, this is causing a very huge problem in society, because a man is receiving instant gratification from his cell phone, and then there is a plethora of single women where the margin of difference from one woman to the other seems to be like less than 1%. So it's like, and then it becomes this thing of, when you have $5, you know exactly what you want, and everything you want you can't afford. But then when you have $5,000, you kind of don't know what to buy because you can afford so much. That's really what's happening with men today in relationships. It's like, when relationships were more common and there weren't as many single women, and it's like everybody kind of had somebody, so it seems, then you know all the exact type of woman you want, and this stuff, you lusting after this woman, she's taken, this woman's taken, this woman's taken. But now that there's a plethora of single women, it's kind of like men are afraid to make a move, because they're saying, okay, if I jump in and I get with this woman, what happens if in 3 years she's crazy, or in 5 years she's crazy? And now I got to start all over. I got to try to figure out how to break up with her. But what if we've gotten married? What if we have kids? And so it's these hypothetical things that really aren't rooted in reality, but it's also skewed because the man is subconsciously comparing this real woman to this digital woman, this fictional woman. And the thing about the digital is, when a man sees this woman, he can't see her pain. So when he's watching her on the World Wide Web or on whatever type of film, he can't see her pain. He can't see her STDs, if she has any. He can't see her depression. He can't see her other side, where she would, slit a man's throat in his sleep. He can't see that. So all he sees is peace and pleasure and happiness and whatever other feeling he would call it. But then when he gets in reality with a real woman, he experiences the highs and the lows, the ups and the downs, the demands, the requests, the honey-do list, or whatever it may be, the mood swings, the monthly cycle. He experiences those things, and he's like, whoa, hold on. Am I really up for this? And the reason why he feels like he's not really up for it is because he's been spoiled by instant gratification. So that's why we see a lot of men get with women, and they're with the woman for 3 months, 6 months, a year and then just ghost or they break up. And I cannot tell you the amount of women I talked to who said everything was going great. Like we were going, it felt great. And then he just, all of a sudden it just flipped, it changed and he ghosted me. And a lot of times women don't understand it's a man confusing reality with fantasy. So, and it's hard to go from fantasy to reality. And sometimes when you've never known reality and then you get in reality, you don't understand that this reality is everyone's reality. You think this reality is just your reality. And you're comparing what you have in real life to what you think other people have. And so, and this goes both ways, especially it happens a lot too with women where they've never really had a relationship or never been in a real adult relationship, and they get into this relationship and it's tumultuous at times. It's highs and lows, it's mood swings, it's some angry bouts, some angry seasons. And the woman is like, whoa, this isn't like the fiction book I read where the woman got into a relationship and they hit it off and they were kayaking and canoeing and skydiving every week. Like, what's going on? We're arguing for every day for a month. And it's like, that's a relationship. That's two humans that are very different trying to get to know each other. And on the flip side is the ones that work are the ones who commit to growing and changing and shifting from being selfish to being selfless. And if that doesn't happen, then you find yourself just continuously in this vicious cycle. And this is what is also breaking down our relationships: reality, fantasy versus reality, instant gratification versus delayed gratification, microwave mentality versus oven mentality. And I always say that God did not create love in the microwave. He created it in the oven. It takes time. And any two people can learn to love one another, because love is something that you create, not something that you find. And so we do not understand that really. And today we are suffering because of pornography. And this is a root cause that I found. And a lot of people think that relationships are ended because of, people say irreconcilable differences, or people say finances. And it's really not those things. The root of it, honestly, is what we do behind closed doors and what we tell ourselves behind closed doors and what we're doing in the dark. And so if a person cannot shift their heart to where their heart is led to honesty, their heart desires honesty and transparency and integrity, then when we are in the dark, we are indulging in things that takes us further away from our spouse than bring us closer. So if a woman is on her phone and she's on the page of men who are very muscular with their shirt off and watching them, work out, and then her husband has this, keg for a stomach, that's going to make her start to despise her husband and see him as lazy, see him as sloppy. But she doesn't understand that the man who is working out with his shirt off and oiled down is doing that because of his insecurity, or he could be doing it because of his pain, or he could be doing it because that's how he makes a living and that is his job. So his body has to look like that. And he may not make more than what her husband makes doing his job, but it is the comparison that becomes the thief. And the same thing with men. If a man goes on his phone and he's looking at these women who he doesn't know their story, he doesn't know their pain, he doesn't know why they are doing what they're doing, he doesn't realize that her butt is fake, he doesn't realize that her abs are fake, he doesn't realize how much surgery and how much work she's had, or how or why she works out so much if her body is natural. He doesn't realize that it's just completely genetic and she could eat Oreos all day and still look like that in some cases. Or he doesn't realize that her mother or father passed away from a terminal illness and she's afraid to get that, and having that in the front of her mind every day pushes her like none other to be in the gym. Or she's living with an irreversible disease or STD, and she's telling herself, if I don't work out every day, I'm going to go crazy because I'm going to be depressed and my body's going to break down. So when he or she is on their phone and they're indulging in books or movies or social media of a fantasy, something that is not reality, and yet they don't ground themselves and remind themselves that this is not real, then it destroys what they actually do have in real life. And so instead of falling in love with what they have in real life, and as humans, what we are charged to do and what we have to do as humans is we have to come to a place that we start to appreciate and respect and to love the humanness of the human existence. So when a man can appreciate a woman's cellulite and understand that this cellulite is a part of life, that this, that this stomach or these arms or these edges that are receding or these ingrown hairs, these stretch marks, like this is beautiful, this is life, this is growth, this is graceful aging, and this is what is real. Like this is the real human experience. The same way we would then ask a woman to appreciate a man's ingrown hairs under his chin and his receding hairline or completely gone hair on the top of his head, or appreciate his rough feet or his rough hands and his mediocre hygiene because of his upbringing and how he was raised, instead of looking down on what we have right in front of us and then pedestalizing what we see through a phone screen. And all of this ties back into the power of pornography and how detrimental it is to our society. And of course, that's just one of the deeper issues, in the sense of one of the more dangerous, but there's several levels of it, because how they say they use the word porn for everything, like a cigar porn. I know a guy with a company called that. Food porn, retail porn. It's like the word is used for anything that is scintillating, titillating, stimulating, anything that is an indulgence in this area. So although we're talking about the physical, like the real pornography, if that doesn't apply to you and your situation, you have to also think about it is a similar addiction can be formed just off of watching real, REEL pornography, TikTok pornography, and just seeing other people's life and other people's highlight reel, and then comparing it to our behind the scenes and not realizing the motivation behind it. Say, hey, this person is so organized. Yes, they're organized because they make money from doing organizational videos on TikTok, but their life is in shambles, just like all of our lives are in shambles in some area. So they may be cleaning up and videoing it, and then you're feeling bad about your very busy and hectic life, but they may be single and living alone, or they may be suffering from OCD, and this is a condition that they have to live with, and they decide to turn on the camera. But yet we compare ourselves to something that we really have no clue what is the behind the scenes of it. So as you tie this in, we can take this word pornography and we really can make it an overarching theme to cover several different lifestyles and several different industries, to say the study of a perceived reality of someone that who we do not know in real life is detrimental to our reality. So when we look at someone from the outside in and we don't know the behind the scenes and we compare it to our life, our circumstance and situation, we destroy what we have by envying what we think he or she has. So a woman can be performing a sexual act on a man on the camera, on film, and be living with an incurable sexually transmitted disease that does not show. And the man could be destroying his marriage by comparing his wife to this woman, when if he knew what this woman on this screen was living with, he would see her completely different than the way he is pedestalizing her and then pedestalizing his wife. And I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to use it. And this is where we have to come to this knowledge and understanding. So for men, and if you are a woman and this applies, then let it apply. But again, remember, I'm a man, speak from a male perspective. For men, what you have to do is we have to come to a place where we realize that what we are doing in the fantasy world is detrimental to our reality, and that we are only fooling ourselves. We are only hurting ourselves first, but also then hurting our woman or potential wife and our children or future children, because we are wrapped up in fiction. And to be wrapped up in fiction and to have no footing, no rooting and grounding in reality is very dangerous. And so we have to create a system where we are stimulated by things that are healthy and not detrimental to our overall state of being. Meaning, if you go play golf, yes, it may take time, and yes, it may take you away from your family at times, but you can't catch a STD from it. Your wife can't really be mad at golf as she can as a woman. Yes, you might not like it all the time, and yes, may ask you, hey, let's do that a little less, but golf is not a person. So you don't have to worry about golf getting in a car and following you around and slicing your wife's tires, or harassing you on the phone, or you don't have to worry about golf getting pregnant or golf giving you a STD. So although that could be a fantasy, thinking that you're going to get good enough in your 30s or 40s to join the PGA Tour, although that can be a fantasy, it is a healthier fantasy than pornography. And that could be anything. So if that's restoring a car, if it's basketball, if it's tennis, if it's watching sports, if it's starting a podcast, if it's writing a book, if it's reading books, we as men have to find a replacement for the sexual stimulation that we are engaging in, the things that we are doing that are detrimental. And I'm saying we, but in all transparency, I do not struggle in that area. And the reason why I do not struggle in that area is just because I analyze it from the outside looking in, and I understand what addiction is because I grew up seeing addiction. And so I understand that addiction takes control of your life. You no longer have a sense of agency over your life, and that eventually it destroys your life. So when I look at something that I realize can be an addiction, I stay away from it at all costs. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I today was on Instagram and I was scrolling through the reels, and it was after I woke up. I had read my Bible. I had read, I listened to the audio. So I listened to the first 2 chapters, and then I listened to another, I think 13 or 14 chapters in the book of Acts. But I was, after the first two chapters, I was in and out of sleep. So I couldn't really count that. Although the stories went in my subconscious, I had to go all the way back to what I heard consciously. And I realized that consciously I heard about 3 chapters. And so tomorrow I'll have to pick up after those 3 chapters, not after the whole, 14, 15, 16 that I listened to. But after that, I was on Instagram on the Reels. And one of the Reels, or one of the posts, was from a gambling site. And it was a gambling site or hotel in Las Vegas, but they have a gambling app. And I clicked the link to the app because I live a pretty mild and boring life, in the sense of my excitement is going on date nights with my wife and going to my son's soccer games. Like, that's my excitement. Outside of that, I really have no excitement. I have some nice cars, but you get used to it after a while to where it's just not that thrilling. And I'll take breaks from one car to the other. So the car I'm driving now, I'm kind of getting a little tired of it. So I'm going to take it to the storage. And my other car has a nail in the tire, so I got to air it up and get a new tire, or because they don't plug that kind of tire. It's a drag radial. And I'll get that one, and I'll get a little thrill from that. But outside of that, I don't have anything. So I want to do golf lessons. I want to do tennis lessons, but I hurt my back falling off of my son's skateboard years ago. So I seen this app and I'm like, man, I just seen a guy say he spent $27 on a parlay and won $280,000. Do you know what $280,000 can do for me right now in my life or in my business? Like, man, I could pay off so much. I could just really invest. I could do a lot with $280,000. What kind of man am I? What kind of father am I to not go spend $26 if I could win $280,000? Like, this is for my family. So all of that runs through my head, and I click on the app and I look at it, and I'm getting ready to consider downloading it. But I know that gambling is an addictive thing, because I was in a casino when I was filming a TV show, and I went down to play on the slot machines after we finished filming, and I lost all my money. And yes, it wasn't a lot of money. I set a budget, but I still went over my budget. And so it went from being fun to being demoralizing and kind of depressing and kind of angering. And you don't want to lose like that. You don't want something to have control over you. So if you don't have self-control, you'll keep going and going and going and going because you want to win, but the house always wins. And so the same thing with any other vice that we can get into that is detrimental, it can take over. It can take over and it can ruin our lives. And this is why I see so many men not getting married, because it's what's being done behind closed doors that is stimulating and gratifying, that then the man says, well, I don't want to lose this freedom to gamble my whole paycheck, or I don't want to lose this freedom to lie in the bed naked while watching this woman on the screen, streaming this to the TV and doing whatever I want to do. And the reason why now I can guesstimate that that's what's happening, just because I understand human nature and I understand the mind. And I remember working around people who, were said to have mental disabilities. And one of the things that even with the mental disabilities that they would get into would be like, cross-dressing in their room and being in their room and watching their, what we would call nasty movies, and putting on, the guys they would put on lipstick, put on a bra, put on a thong, or lay there and, smell it. And they would be the man and the woman at the same time. And we were notified of this working in that industry or working with that population. Like, hey, this person was caught doing this. And so when they put this sign on their door, or they tell you that, hey, I'm going to have quiet time, and they are by themselves, do not go in their room because this is what they are doing. And I'm like, so if this is what a disabled person who the doctor says this person's brain doesn't function at the highest level, if this mind is given to pornography and all of this stuff, then what is a fully functioning mind capable of and dreaming up and getting into? And that is why we see and we hear the stories of the billionaire, who took his life, and what was being said about him and what he got into with the individuals he was said to be dealing with, which now that makes me want to really go sit down and watch that again, that documentary on Netflix or wherever, and like study that. And then also the people, his friends, who were some pretty prominent names of individuals who they said hung out with him and would go over and be his friend. And as mama and daddy always said, you'll be like who you be around. And then one of those prominent names that was mentioned in his story, that billionaire ended up going through a divorce. And I'm not saying the names because those individuals and their trust and their family is very powerful and could get this video removed for having their name in it, because they probably have the owner of YouTube on speed dial, and so, or the founder. So you have to be careful when you're speaking about stuff like that, because we live in a world that we do not actually have freedom of speech, even though that's one of the little things, but it's not really real. So you have to, and it's not real at all, because even on YouTube they limit a lot of my videos, demonetize a lot of my videos, and I'm just talking about love and relationships, but they say, oh, this isn't suitable for advertising. It's like, do you know where we live at? Like, do you know what's going on in this world to say that this ain't suitable for advertising? Advertisers don't care. It's like, you see the commercials that they showing, but it's the world we live in. And so it's a very good possibility same thing happened with this video, because when you're addressing real stuff, and that's why I'm about to have to, do my own app, and it have to be behind a paywall so I could talk about very candidly and vividly about what I need to talk about, because we're living real life and we are facing real problems and we're going through real things. And so we need real talk and we need real solutions. But if you do this full time, it's your livelihood. And in order to have a livelihood, you have to almost water yourself down so that you can get the message out in code language, so to speak, so people understand. So one of the things for women to understand, for one, if you struggle just like men, then you need to do the same thing that I suggested for a man. And so that's why, like with myself, I am not above any of these struggles, in the sense of I'm going to be tempted, I'm going to be tried just like every other man. So what I have to do is put things in place to keep me going and keep me focused and have a routine. So I got a massage chair that's going to relieve some stress. I got to go get in it after this video. Beside my massage chair, I bought a sauna, infrared sauna. That's going to relieve some stress. I have a treadmill and I have a Peloton, and I hired a running coach. I hired a dietitian. I have a separate space where my family and my wife can go and sit and look at the water. I can go and sit and look at the water, or we can just get out of our normal environment. And I have things that I like my cars. And so I'm building a life where my outlets are healthy, because if the outlet is not healthy, then you will very easily get into an outlet that is pleasurable, but the pleasure leads to pain. And that's what we have to realize. So if you are a woman and you are suffering from some form of addiction, and even if it's not pornography, whatever it may be, then you have to do these same things and put things in place. The other thing I would say for women is you really have to, and this is what a lot of women, it was shocking to see how a lot of women did not believe or could not correlate a man's decisions about his life and his body to his ability to be faithful in a relationship. And I had to do another video, like a follow-up video that didn't go as viral, explaining that a man's choices in life and how he treats his body and what he ingests into his body say a lot about his character, his level of integrity or self-love and self-respect. And one lady who, she smokes whatever, I don't know if cigarettes or weed, was saying, oh, you probably eat pork. And I'm here talking, and it's like, pork is nowhere. Yes, if you eat a whole bunch of it, you're gonna be salt level or whatever. But pork is actually a lean meat, and it actually has less calories than a lot of other meat, and it actually is a part of millions of people's diet who live to 100. But anything done excessively is gonna be dangerous. But nowhere near is pork as bad as nicotine or marijuana to the body. And yes, both is gonna have their different properties and cause their own type of issues, but we have to be real about that. It's almost apples and oranges. But in our life, when we look at a person's choices, so many women did not realize that if a man smokes weed or if a man smokes cigarettes, and the same thing goes if a man gambles, if a man gets drunk, if a man watches pornography, all of those things have grave implications about who he is as a man and how he will show up in a relationship. And so what we have to realize and understand is we got to come to a place to where you can evaluate those things. So what a woman should do when she meets a man is she should pump her brakes and she should proceed with caution. So a woman should take her time getting to know a man without him feeling interrogated or judged. The woman should create a safe space to where the man can drop his guard and be himself. And in being himself, the woman gets to read him and learn about him. But if a woman comes in and she does so much talking and she's so assertive or she's so demanding and she lays out the whole book, then a man will then know what to hide. I have a quote that says, if you read a man your script, he will pick a role to play and he's gonna be the star in it. So the way this looks in role play is a woman who's on a date with a man should really sit down and just really talk to the man as if he's the most interesting man in the world. Like the commercial, the most interesting man in the world. Like a woman should put a man in that position so that this man feels confident, he feels heard, and then he lets you know who he is. And no, it's not playing a game. It's learning how to talk to people. It's learning how to get to know people. And in getting to know someone, it is then okay and it's expected and it's understood that when we open up, the person we're opening up to is going to tell us how they feel about us and if they feel this is a fit. So it's just like when you go on a job interview. When you go on the job interview, the job doesn't just sit there and just talk and just have you watch all these videos and you don't get to say anything. The job sits back and gets to know you and let you talk. And then at the end of you talking, even you knowing that you're auditioning for a job, the answer still is no. A lot of times because the science shows that the more a person talks, the more you're going to know about him or her. So therefore, if a woman goes in and she's dealing with a man and she's like, so, what do you like to do? Oh, okay. How long have you been doing that? Oh, that's pretty cool. So where were you raised at? And how was that? What was that city like? Oh, okay. And so after high school, what did you get into? Oh, all right. That's very interesting. You don't have to say, "Oh, that's really cool," or "Oh, that's really amazing," or "Oh, I really love that," or "I like that too." You can literally, as a woman, just say, "That's very intriguing. That is very interesting," because it is interesting. And so today, I mean, what's a normal day look like? Like, what do you do for fun? Like, what are you into? Like, what's your hobbies? What's something about you that most people don't know? Like who are you at your core? Like these type of questions, yes, a man's gonna be intrigued. Yes, some men may feel interrogated or like, what's up with these questions? Why are you asking these questions? But more so than that, the man is gonna feel like you're trying to get to know him. And then after getting to know him, he may ask all those same questions. And you can answer those questions if he has answered the question. And you also have to realize that he maybe didn't answer the question truthfully. So as a woman, you don't want to be so forthcoming. You don't want to lie, but you don't have to tell every little thing. So you don't have to speak in, definitive statements to where you are saying, or finite statements where you're saying, well, I'm very chill in the sense of I don't like being around people who smoke, or I'm very conservative. Like I don't watch pornography, and I really don't like hanging around people who watch pornography. If you go there before the man has talked about what he does in his intimate time, like in his quiet time behind closed doors, and some men may be into porn and they won't mention it, but if a man has normalized it and he feels nothing is wrong with it, then when you ask him, so what do you do like on a Friday night and you're home alone? Like what does that look like? And some men will say, well, I typically watch a movie, or I try to find some type of sporting event. I may read my Bible. I'm working on a book, or I'm working on this business plan, so I'm doing that. And then there will be men who will say, what's up, man? Huh? Okay. Mm-mm. Very interesting because I still haven't found mine. Yeah. Maybe check the car. Would like to hope not. Right. Mm. I have took my wedding band off. I don't know if I was getting in the sauna or about to lift weights. Oh, I need to check the gym. And I haven't been able to find it. And it's two of them. And it's Cartier, and they're kind of thick. So that's why I take it off. And then my wife, she took her eternity band off. And now she can't figure out but she cleans so much and she do so much with chemicals. She always, take it off. So it's like, that's weird. But what I was saying is, if a man has gotten comfortable and he has normalized this particular behavior, he's gonna say, "Oh, Friday night, woo, you sure you want to know that answer?" Yeah, yeah. Okay, like it's nothing. We're both adults. And then he's like, "Well, honestly, I like to put a little entertainment on the tube, let's say." And he'll go on into, I pour me up a drink and kick back and put a little adult entertainment. He'll go ahead and explain it, and then you're like, "Oh, okay, that's very interesting." Well, you get some time with yourself, and you just talk normal. You just talk normal. You create that space. You talk normal. Okay, awesome. And then you may do a second date or third date, or you may say after that, the next day or a couple days later, you just say, "Hey, it was really great, meeting you and talking to you, but I realized just in this season of my life, it's not something that I'm ready for. I'm not ready to move forward in that way. And so I don't want to waste your time or block anything, because you're an amazing person. He's still an amazing person for somebody, just not the perfect fit for you. And you let them know that. And then you move on. And that's what a woman should do, to find out, like, what is this guy into? And sometimes a woman does everything right and she doesn't find out till a year in, until they're living together, until they're married. And at that point, that's when you have to put your foot down. And that's a whole nother video. So we'll do a video on what to do if your man has a porn addiction. So, hey, this Tony Gaskins. God bless you. Make sure you visit TonyGaskinsAcademy.com. Got a bunch of courses on there. Probably anything you need to take your life to the next level. Visit that if you appreciate this here work. God bless you. We're going to talk soon.